What's going on, brothers and sisters of today? So I want to just first of all reassure you that there's an actual reason why you're going through such a hard time in your life right now. Okay? And a lot of the times we may think that, it's just like sufferings that we deserve because we're sinful people or whatever. But that's not the case. Everyone goes through trials and tribulations of their own, right? And actually, someone reached out to me on Instagram, and they asked me a specific question, and it was basically along the lines of, so if God is, good, right, and Jesus sacrificed himself for us to have salvation, then why do people that don't do really that much bad end up suffering so tremendously? And I was like, okay, well, what have Christians told you, right? What have like the general Christians told you? And mainly it's along the lines of, well, we have free will and that, like, you choose the things. But the thing is, it's nothing that she could control, right? It was just something that happened. And so based on the responses, okay, well, that makes sense. Like, the price of sin is death and everything like that. And that there's still evil going to be happening in this world. That's understandable. But as far as the things that happen in your life that are like almost uncontrollable, that it just really puts a damper on how to live life, most of the time when that happens, it's not to remind you that like God is greatest, or it's not to remind you that we're all destined for death or whatever, but it's to remind us that God has a greater picture in mind. Okay? And the reason why I say this is because me personally, there's a lot of things that I went through in my life, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that you went through in your life. But the thing is, I'm still alive. You're still alive, right? So that's the first thing, right? Is being grateful for the things that you do have before you're like, oh, why God, why God, why God? Be grateful for the air that you're able to breathe, and the water that you're able to drink, and the food that you're able to eat. Okay, that's the first step. The second thing is that we go through these hard things not for just like the cost of sin and because we have free will, or because of like there's still evil in this world and that it's a wicked place, like whatever. Like, let's just put those out of the picture. And let's look at how discipleship is. Okay? So discipleship is to steward one another and to show God's glory, right? So in a general sense, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. So, in order to do that, you need to relate with people on a deep level if you want to impact people in a greater sense, right? And so I said this to her. I said, well, the thing is, sometimes things happen in our lives, not because of all the other things that, the Bible teaches, but it's also to have a living testimony of you having faith in God, right? Because that very thing can serve as a testimony, right? I had faith within God, and eventually I got blessed, right? But the thing is, she's not really faithful. She lost faith because of it. And the thing is, I'm 100% positive. I will believe on this till the day I die and when I'm in eternity. Is that I know for a fact if she were to have that faith and fully trust, I'm sure the things that happened to her would be fixed or would be used for a greater good, right? But unfortunately, that's not the case. Now I want to dive into really how that relates. Like, what do you mean as for the greater good of things? Well, she can relate with someone that went through that experience and said, okay, I know that everything in life is really hard, but you also have to look at the things that God does for you. Right? No matter how hard it is. And even Paul says, consider all things a blessing. Consider all things joyful. Because it's a blessing to be able to receive the things that you need. Now, from my perspective, I went through a couple of things. And during that time, in the moment, I was just like, I've had plenty of conversations with God where I'm like, why, God? Why is this happening? Why are you doing this to me? Why do I have such a strong desire to do this? Why do I have such a strong desire to do this? Or why did this exactly happen to me? And I'm playing this blame game of why rather than what. Like, what can I do with this, right? How can I utilize this, right? What and how? And then over time, I realized, oh, I went through this because I was able to relate with some people on this regard. I went through this so that I could help people in this regard. I went through this so then I can be more relatable. I went through this so then I actually am a little bit more careful. I went through this so I can actually cherish the love of God. And the more and more that I started saying what or how, the more that I was actually utilizing those bad things, the bad things in my life that happened, for good. Right? For example, I was arrested because I was selling marijuana, right? And so just being completely honest, being fully transparent. And in the moment, I was like, why? I want to move. I want to leave. I want to start a new life. Why is this happening? Why? I just kept questioning it. Why? I never actually found the answer. But then I started meeting people that were kind of in the same situation where they were kind of in the system and they got arrested and all these things. And it's just like, listen, bro, like, I understand it. Because I know some of the Christians that you talk to, they were born and raised. You feel like you can't relate to them. I understand that, right? And that's how I felt too when I first started out. And it just helped me relate with these people that felt like no one else could relate with them, right? You know, people would be like, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying, but they're like, at the end of the day, they never experienced anything like that. And so there's so many things that you could say are really bad for you, but it's a lot harder to say the things that are bad happening are actually really good. And that's the kind of humility, and that's the kind of passion that we should have when we follow Christ. Because the thing is, no matter what your life is, there's always something to be grateful for. No matter what your life is, you don't understand the long term. You may like to think that way, but there's a true testament from the book of Job. This guy raised and lived in faith within God, and he got blessed from all these things, and then one day, everything's gone. Everything that he had was gone. And he's sitting there, he's like, why? And he kept battling with God. And then God finally was like, okay, fine, I'll show you. And he took him on the journey, right? And showed him the bigger picture. And then after that day, Job was like, whoa, okay, I'm sorry, God. Like, I shouldn't be questioning you that much. You are really the one that's responsible for all things in the long term wise, right? And that's the thing about us humans, about us people, is that we literally cannot comprehend the bigger picture. It's really hard for us to comprehend those things, especially in the moment too, right? Especially when you're in the heat of the battle, it's really hard to be like, wow, this is really good. Like, it's hard, right? It's just like, you know, you're getting hit with all these things, and, you know, your car is shut down, and your house is burning down, and, you know, it's a little weird too to be like, I'm so happy this is happening. But that's what defers us as followers of Christ from the world, right? It's because we don't follow exactly what the world teaches us. And when you think about it in the very minuscule sense, in the simplistic sense, is that we are taught to look at things as bad, to look at a negative experience that doesn't benefit you as bad. But Christianity teaches a thing that doesn't benefit you personally, like a possession or a power or wealth or whatever, that's really good. Because it humbles you, because it helps you, because it will strengthen your faith, and it's just all these other good things. And that is completely different than what most people grow up to know. But that's why Jesus says when you follow me, you pick up your cross. Because you're going against the world. And the world wants to condemn you. Right? And so I just hope that this video helped you and understanding that this is, if something's bad's happening in your life right now, this is the direct sign to praise God and trust God, more importantly. That even though you don't understand what is going on right now, you know and you trust that God is going to be using it for the greater good. And that's a really big ask, but I challenge you to it. I still struggle with it. I'm no one perfect, right? I'm not someone perfect. I'm not a David Goggins of Christianity. I'm not an Apostle Paul of Christianity. Like, I'm no one different. But it's really important to be talking about these things, to be reminded about these things, because at the end of the day, when we don't, confusion happens, and then we start living more into the world. Why did you start believing in the first place? It's because you believe Jesus is God. If Jesus is God, then you have to take his word for what it is. Okay. Now, before I go on a longer tangent, I hope this helped. The things that you're going through right now are going to be something way greater than you can comprehend. All you got to do is put your faith in God and trust that you're going to be okay. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a good, blessed day.